Hi, William Towers, Elin Manahan Thomas, and Bob Davis. Thank you so much for joining us for our next Crafty Beer with Christopher Monks. It's about today something slightly different, not just about life in general, but specifically something very exciting which is about to happen, because in 2 weeks' time, after all of this time, we're going to be bringing some of the musicians back together again, and we're going to be doing a live broadcast recording of Purcell's Dido and Aeneas. And the reason I've asked you to come together in my kitchen is to actually talk about the time 5 years ago when we came together to do a recording and a tour of this. And it turned out to be very successful for us and enabled us to do lots more performances of this, because we had this extraordinary thing where we had two very significant reviews, one in a left-wing paper and one in a right-wing paper, but giving us 4 and 5 stars in the Guardian and Telegraph. So we clearly satisfied very many different elements of our audience. So anyway, thank you very much for agreeing to do this. Obviously, it's been a very strange and unusual time, but quite exciting in certain ways. How do you both feel about returning to the stage? I mean, Elin, for you, I know the last concert I did was actually with you in David's Hall in Cardiff. How do you feel about coming together with a musician again, or are we going to struggle to get you?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because the last concert I did was the B minor mass in Cardiff, and we said on that day, because it was looming, we said, gosh, if this is the last concert we do for ages, then it doesn't matter, we've gone out with a bang because it's so extraordinary. And that's completely true. You know, I thought it was the most wonderful day. And then I drove all the way back, a long way back from Cardiff, and in the car on the way back I thought, what will we do, like, if there's nothing else to do? And obviously we filled that time. We found stuff to do. We've kept the kids going, in our case.
Yeah.
We kept the house. We found new jobs and stuff to kind of, do on the side. And I think going back to the singing is going to seem really weird, but I think it'll be like getting back into pajamas at the end of a really tough day's work. Does that sound really weird?
No, not at all. It does a bit. It does. So for you, I mean, this must be quite a strange time for you, because you spend so much time traveling around the world. Yeah, I know you do a lot of opera abroad. And in fact, the last time you did Aeneas with us was actually in that year when we recorded it, and we've never been able to get you since, or maybe you've refused to do it with us.
Two things.
So, I mean, how's it felt being so close to your wife for such a long period of time?
Well, obviously, it's been perfect. It's been great. It has been great to have so much time, back together as a family. All 4 of us. I mean, obviously, there are times that we want to get away and have our own space,
and we can't.
And we can't, or we go for a run. Go for a walk, go for a run, run away, in the air. But we are performers. And we want to get back to it, and we need to do it. It's
absolutely
part of our identity.
What about you, Will? I mean, Elin, you and I last week recorded a video which, rather surprisingly, I'm not saying it was rubbish, but it's been watched 25,000 times already. And I mean, there's something rather charming about it. It was my honky tonk out of tune piano, which sounded more like a guitar than your guitar, Will. And you managed to create a little bit of magic. I mean, how do you feel about performing with real life humans again?
I can't wait, actually. And I've done, while I've been in lockdown, I've done quite a few little collaborative recordings using different apps, different medium, not just the one with you, but with other Baroque orchestras and with a couple of ensembles. And I was doing one this morning, in fact, and I realized the thing that I miss is the sense of other musicians around you, and you having your radar, having your antennae out in each other's zones and understanding what other people are doing and responding spontaneously to what your colleagues are doing, and which is the essence of it, really. So all these wonderful kind of bits of technology that we've been using, they're incredible, but they don't satisfy that part of you that longs to be making music with other human beings, because those tiny little idiosyncratic responses, those little fluctuations that you pick up on and you respond to, that's not possible when you're doing these sort of strange independent recordings, because quite often you really can't record these things simultaneously. So it'll be nice, and it'll be incredibly peculiar, I think, to be back in. I mean, I haven't performed since the beginning of March. I was in Canada. The last thing I did was on stage in Victoria Opera in Canada. So that's a long way off. Far, gosh, it feels like it happened in another century now. Very peculiar.
I think it's going to be quite emotional as well. I feel just the sense of breathing together, the musicians, the sense of being able to just feel a oneness. It's going to feel quite sensitive at first. So going back to the Dido in 2015, I think, Will, you were cast as a multicast, weren't you? You had the sorceress, and I think you were one of the witches as well in one of the performances we did. And actually, what are you drinking, Will, this evening?
Right. Well, rather appropriately, I got hold of this can of. Can I get it in the light? Yeah. The Dark Arts hazelnut. I thought it was suitable for my character.
And so then we also, Elin, you were playing Belinda, I think, and Bob. Just to make things a little bit of tension, we had you playing Aeneas with somebody else, Rachel, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So obviously we had that frisson on the stage. Now, in terms of Dido, it's been part of my life, my performing life since 2005, and it's been part of my musical journey, and also part of my journey of understanding of how to work with musicians. And it's one of those wonderful pieces to revisit every now and again, because it's like Bach. When you go to the Passions, you see more stuff in it every single time you do it, and you sort of have that awful moment of realization. You think, why on earth didn't I see that last time? And Dido's sort of like that in a way, but it's wonderfully simple. It's a brilliant opera to bring. If you've never been to an opera before, certainly a British opera, it's a perfect place to start. I mean, for a start, it only lasts 45-something minutes.
It's nice and short, yeah.
Great.
The whim of the Baroque world.
Yeah,
I think we can all agree on that one.
So in what way, so Elin, Bob, I mean, what way is this piece important to you? How's it been part of your lives?
Well, I seem to remember, I think I might have studied it. When I was at school, I studied it. But I really got to know it when I was at university, and we took it up to the Edinburgh Fringe. So I spent a week up in Edinburgh. It's just a student production, but we really got to know it then. And kind of since then, it's sort of always been on my radar, and I've done it a few times, and hadn't recorded it before I recorded it with you.
And also, you were a tenor when you did your first Aeneas.
Well, let's not talk about that too much.
I mean, you were
it's a long time ago.
Yeah, but you've got the proper history of it. But then I love the fact that in terms of like the roles for women in it, I mean, not only do I love the myths and the legend and the whole story, I find it so fascinating, and it's perfect for all audiences because kids love it because it's got witches in it, it's got magic, and grown-ups love it because on the whole they know the ending. It's a bit like watching Titanic. We know what's going to happen, and of course it builds up to like the most famous aria in all Baroque times, Dido's Lament. And I like it because I first did it years ago for John Lake Gardner, and I was in the chorus. Then I graduated to First Woman, which was exciting, and she gets the best tune. Then I moved to Belinda, and I was Belinda for many years, and then I got to do Dido. So you genuinely grow through the opera and through the roles, and it's just seeing different colours then and different sides to it every time you're doing it, and seeing audience reactions as you change character as you go. It's just the most phenomenal piece.
And Will, I think the first time I knew of you doing it was actually when we were at university together, and you were playing the sorceress, and is it the Round Church?
That's
University Operatic Society.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, my association with this piece goes back even further, because Dido and Aeneas is actually the reason that I am here, because it's how my parents met.
Wow.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah. My parents were part of a production at Bradford University when they were students. And my mother was the sorceress, and my father was the drunken sailor. Which is funny because I don't think, as far as I'm aware, I don't think my father's ever been drunk in his entire life. So yeah, that I have a very soft spot for it, and also it was something of a first for me because that production you're referring to at Cambridge, Chris, and I was actually digging out my old photo album, and I found a photo of me.
Oh, amazing.
I also found a photo of Chris Monks here. Look.
Oh well.
Yes.
There we go. Zooming on that.
So yes, it was my first ever role as a countertenor, and I'd only been a countertenor for about two or 3 years by that stage. So it was quite an exciting moment to actually play a role on stage, and my parents, who obviously have this love of the piece and association with it, came to see me perform. And I remember afterwards, there's a gentleman in the audience came up to me and said, "Excuse me, am I right in thinking that you're a castrato?" And my mum, who was in earshot, sort of said, really indignant, "It certainly is not." Very funny. But also, and actually, this is worth just pointing out. If we come on a little journey with me, just above my head, this is a painting done by the designer of me as the sorceress in a production of Dido and Aeneas.
How is that the sorceress?
Yeah, I know. Wearing a very sharp suit. The funny thing is, the designer showed me her preliminary sketches, and I was going to be in a corset and stockings.
It's an awful weekend for you, Will.
And all day at work for you, Will.
And then they scrapped that plan and went for the kind of suited gentleman.
Shame.
So my next question was actually going to be, what are your most notable performing memories? And I would say, Will, that must be coming pretty close to what that might have been.
Yeah, it was good. But that's actually was a lovely production where we did it in a theatre in Deptford, in the Round, and I began, because I was basically wearing a very sharp suit, I just blended in. So I sat in the audience for most of the show, and then just suddenly sprung up and terrified all the children.
Bob, but what are your most memorable moments performing this work?
Well, obviously, up in Edinburgh, being there and performing it, sort of twice a day during festival time was amazing. So, Bath, of course. Ellen and I did it in Bath, in the baths. They built a stage across the river, and we performed it there, kind of with people all around us. That was pretty amazing.
Well, it was terrifying as well, because I was 7 months pregnant.
Yeah.
And the stage wasn't wide anyway, and I was wide. And there was all this steam rising up around us, so you couldn't always see where the edge of the stage was. But of course, typical, productions, we only had the day to get in and do it.
Yeah.
And so the whole of the performance, I was just on tenterhooks, just like this whale waddling, thinking, don't fall into the bath. That'd be the biggest splash they've ever heard, and I'll pollute this beautiful Roman water. But that was cool. But I was Belinda again, and you were Aeneas. We've never done Dido and Aeneas together.
We have not.
Oh,
I think the directors deliberately do that just to see the agony on your face. As I mean, I do remember that one of the things that when we were preparing the recording, Elin, I said to you, so one of the things that I've really struggled with is what to do with the drunken sailor, because I always feel a bit cringeworthy when you hear these recordings.
What do you do with the drunken sailor?
What do you do with the drunken sailor? Yes, I see what you did there. Because I always feel a bit cringeworthy of those recordings where you have this faux Somerset accent done very badly, which turns into Yorkshire and then some sort of foreign accent halfway through, and it's just embarrassing. And then you said to me, have you thought about getting one of the players to do it? And then we had that conversation about Fairy Queen when we did it with Fairy Queen the first time. And in our research to do it, we discovered that actually when Purcell originally did Fairy Queen, he worked with actors who, on the whole, probably couldn't sing. And so on that basis, I thought, well, actually, that explains quite a lot. If you look at a lot of Fairy Queen, it's written very simply. And the same with Drunken Sailor, there's nothing complicated about it. So we said, yeah, what we need is it to be sung really, really badly. So we asked the leader of the orchestra to do it. So Miles Golding, who was leading at the time, he was a proper bloke. He was probably up for it. And we said, would you do it? And he said, absolutely. And he was totally unfitting. His voice was absolutely unsuited in every single way, even the highest note. But he gave it everything. He gave it the whole lot. And he was just giving it the beams, got to the high note in the most extraordinary way I've ever heard.
Right.
Passed around it, and it was utterly and brilliantly hilarious. And I was so grateful for that. And luckily the reviewers, they sort of picked up on that as well, and they gave him credit for it, thank God. And then we then took that art on, and I thought, actually, this is great. So I said to the musicians, Miles retired from us as a leader, and so I pointed to the tenor. I said to the tenor, look, I just need you to sing this as badly as possible. And then it translated to a few performances down the line. I said, look, so the chorus and the players, I said, look, however badly the tenor does it, we have to do it worse. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And the audiences were starting to absolutely love this moment until it got to the stage that one of the singers tweeted at the end of the concert, said, can't believe that the musical director just asked us to sing this as badly as possible. and one of the audience members said, "Oh, that was the best bit." I thought the whole concert, the best bit was when we were singing terribly, and that's my abiding memory. Sorry, Elin.
Our Aeneas on the tour, the current star, the singing surgeon, it was Alex, wasn't it? Who's been really, as a singing surgeon, talking about, work behind the front line, or at the front line in the NHS.
Yeah.
And every time I see him there,
you picture it.
I picture the whole thing. But also, Miles did it in one take, because I don't think he could do it again, could he? It was a bit sort of, well, you can't, what did you say? You can't improve on perfection. So if you left it,
I think what they say is you can roll it in glitter.
Yes.
Let's not take that any further, Will. So we've all spent the last 20 or so years of our lives travelling a lot, some more than others. I know Will and Bob especially, you spend a lot of time away from home on planes. Elin, you and I have got children. I mean, obviously, Bob, you have too. But anyway, you spent a lot of time travelling. How has it been over the last few months? And do you think, I know from talking to you that you've all enjoyed actually having time with your family, the time at home, not feeling exhausted all the time from getting off planes and long journeys in the car. Do you think this is going to change when you go back to singing? And it will get back to normal. It's only a matter of time now. Is it going to change the way you construct your working life, do you think?
I think everybody's work-life balance is going to adjust after this. The things that we thought were important are no longer important, and suddenly being at home and being around the family and being healthy and safe is much more important. Certainly to me, it's much more important than flying off somewhere for 6 weeks, 8 weeks doing an opera contract.
I love the way you're talking about being healthy and safe, whilst us as parents are sort of glugging booze at 6 in the evening.
Not drinking it.
And just so you know, our kids are currently parked in front of the Xbox, because that's our top parenting discussion.
That's today's school. So, how about you, Will? I mean, you were in Canada when all this started, and then you flew back. I mean, but obviously, you've got a lovely partner. I mean, and you must be wanting to spend more time at home now.
Yes, actually, it's been a very peculiar time, because I was supposed to be in Mallorca, and then I was supposed to be in the Netherlands, and there were a couple of projects I was really looking forward to. And what has happened instead is my girlfriend, who was planning to move in with me anyway, just so happened that we'd scheduled that for about 3 days before the lockdown began. And so we've been really living with each other very intensely for the last few weeks.
Careful now.
So it was a kind of, I thought, looking back on it now, it was quite a high risk make or break strategy for our relationship. But it's been wonderful. And
last week, she's still there.
Yeah, yeah. She's actually working. Can you believe it?
Someone's going to do well.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, after about 3 weeks of lockdown, she said to me, aren't you a singer? Like, shouldn't you be practicing? And I sort of said, what for? There's nothing now. And I enjoyed I must admit, the first few weeks of not worrying about vocal health all the time, not literally waking up. I had this really bad habit of waking up and first thing in the morning going, just like checking it's all there, because it
really freaks her out the first time she's doing it.
So that's the thing, we're so used to working towards something.
Yeah.
And that's what's been really hard. As you say, it's been great to chill out for a bit, but actually to keep things going, you're probably the same as me, Will. You need to be working towards something, towards the next project.
And also you end up coming with new projects. So I run a school choir, and in order to kind of keep the choir ticking over, but also just to keep myself motivated, I've been doing these weekly videos of me just leading, as it were, a choir session, jumping around like a loon, singing things like bare necessities and doing really silly warm-ups. And they've actually taken quite a lot of work, because you've got to get the camera angle right, and often it takes 17 takes to get one right. But it's just little things like that to keep you kind of, active and musically active, and to remember what the passion is, to keep it ticking over, has been really important. But getting back to just full flowing music is going to be a whole different ball game.
It's going to feel amazing. So anyway, we need to sort of draw to a close. But before I do, just a little quick fire round, bit of fun. We'll tell you. Beer or wine is the first question. So, Elin, why don't you answer that?
Wine.
Unless you have a golden goblet there.
Hey, do you like it? You know, it's really clever because it keeps it cold things cold and hot things hot. It's genius. Sorry.
Well, I should probably go for beer right now, but I do enjoy a good glass of wine also.
And Will?
I love beer.
Yeah.
I mean, I also love wine, but I just generally, I've always gone for beer. And it's another singer choice. I think it's better for the voice. Discuss.
Will, that is not quick. That's not quick. You totally
that is to be discussed and experimented with. But I've always found beer has a less deleterious effect on the voice the next morning.
Beautifully put. Next one. Now, this is slightly pointed at a certain countertenor in the room. Sourdough or granary loaf?
Oh, I like it. Will first.
Well, got to be Will first.
Go on, Will first.
Well, I would say sourdough. In fact, if I could run off camera and quickly grab one that I just made.
Okay,
Well,
you do that.
Whilst he's doing that, we
Yeah.
can reveal the fact that Will has been volunteering at a bakery and learning how to make proper sourdough bread. And he's actually been bringing, whenever I see him now, he brings an entire enormous man-sized loaf of his sourdough bread, and it's exquisite. And he's learned to do it properly as well. So he's got all the sourdough starter. And so here we go. Look at that.
Oh, it's a thing of beauty.
That is wonderful.
Yeah, that's fine. Top marks.
Brilliant.
I feel like
So
sourdough.
Okay, Bob and Elin, sourdough or granary loaf?
I quite like a granary.
Yeah,
Sorry, Will.
we've been making granary in lockdown, and we persuaded the boys to eat it despite what they call bits.
The bits.
Hide it behind the peas, it'll be fine. Okay.
Yeah, I can tell you, working in a bakery, that's all the stuff that basically collects on the floor. We just sweep it up, put that in the granary.
Yeah. So next one, Bach or Mozart?
Ooh.
Bach.
Bach, okay.
I might have to say Bach as well. Yeah. Even though yeah.
Okay. Dr. Towers?
Oh, impossible. I would say Bach. Yeah.
Okay. I think we're all together there. And almost finally, Vindaloo or Balti?
You know, it does depend a bit on when you're next singing. Your voice is going to cut out for a week.
Yeah.
So I'd play it safe with a Balti.
Yeah. It also depends on the curry house you go to.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. Very important.
Dr. Towers, the first time I met you.
Well, I'm from the Midlands, so I'd say Balti every
Okay.
time.
Okay, now here's a final leading question for you all. Bob, this is one for you. Countertenor or female alto?
Oh. I mean, I've never gone out with a countertenor.
Well, not yet.
I said to my girlfriend this morning, who's from Palestine, and she's from Israel. She's Palestinian Israeli, and she said, she'd never actually met a countertenor or heard of it. Never had no idea what one was. And I said, yeah, you never knew that the thing you really needed in your life was a countertenor until now. It's perfectly obvious.
Yeah.
I wish I could have been a countertenor.
You still can. You should hear his falsetto.
Well, I was having a lesson with David Lowe once, and Will walked in at the end. I said for a joke, "What David's just told me, he thinks I'm going to be a serious countertenor," and Will's face just dropped. You know, as he's really working out, how am I going to break it to you? It didn't take you long to work it out. Okay, for Elin, baritone or bass?
Oh well, I mean, clearly baritone. Like, there's no two ways about it.
Really?
Although, like, Bryn Terfel baritone, isn't he? And Bryn Terfel, you know, like, you're basically the next Britain. So I'm going some middle. Yeah, well, you play golf like he does, so that counts. I think we'll see.
Okay, and finally for Will, soprano or mezzo?
Okay. Well, I would say mezzo, and the reason I'd say this, and there are
Macaroni and cheese is ready. Bye.
I was working with a baritone called Jonathan Best, who is just a lovely guy and someone I really respect and look up to. And he said to me once, we were in a production with a couple of really, really crazy sopranos who will not be named. And he said to me, if you were in a city and you had a free day and you is there a soprano on the planet that you would want to go and meet and have lunch with?
Wow, that's a question.
And I actually said, I'll get back to you tomorrow on that.
Nobody immediately came to mind.
When lockdown is over, you are taking me for lunch. Just on the
And you're paying for the bill as well. So, Elin, Bob, Will, thank you so much for giving us your time this evening and enjoying a crafty beer. I can't tell you how excited I am about 2 weeks' time being on the same stage as you all, although I know that there's a bit of an issue with childcare and restrictions down for you, Elin. So I hope we manage to find a way of solving that. But please, everybody, keep in touch with the Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. We will make it really clear when this is going out. But we were totally bowled over by our Royal Albert Hall Festival week last week. Over 100,000 people have watched the various things. And if that's where we have to temporarily exist, then so be it. And we would have truly enjoyed ourselves. And we're very grateful to the sponsor who's actually making this possible so we can pay the musicians to be musicians as they are. So thank you, Elin. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Will. And I look forward to seeing you all in a few weeks.
Cheers.
See you soon.
Lovely. Thanks, guys. Stop. Oh, I forgot to press record.